Hi guys, on today from the install bay.
Do you have a late model car and you're looking to upgrade it, but it has a factory amplifier? Well, if so, today we're going to have a discussion on what you need to do to replace it.
Stay tuned.
So a lot of cars out there are getting a little bit older and it's time to upgrade the factory stereo and speakers. This just happens to be a Dodge Dakota. It has a factory premium sound system in it. Now, each manufacturer has their own version of a premium sound system. In this case, this one has the
Infinity system, yeah.
So it has an outboard amplifier. Now, if we were just going to put a new radio in it, that's no big deal. They make a harness that allows us to use the factory amplifier, retain the factory speakers. But he wants to get rid of those speakers and upgrade to new speakers. So in order to do that, we need to remove the factory amplifier. There's reasons why we need to do that, such as in this case, Dodge uses a 2 ohm Infinity speaker, which these are 4, so we'd lose power. They also actively cross over the speakers in the amplifier. So at the end of the day, the factory amplifier needs to come out. So there's a couple different methods that you can use depending on the system. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is bypassing that amplifier and finding out what kind of inputs the amplifier has. Now, in some cases, you will check for variable voltage and all this stuff. We're not retaining the factory radio. What we need to know is if the inputs of the amplifier and the outputs of the amplifier and how to marriage those two back together. There's a couple different types of inputs going into the amplifier depending on the car manufacturer. So some of them are what are called 8 in and then however many out. 8 would mean that there's actual 8 speaker wires, both positive and negative, for all 4 corners of the car. Then there's amplifiers that are 2 in, which is just a left and a right. And then there's some that have data that don't actually have anything that we can use when we're replacing the radio. So what we want to find out is how many wires does it have coming from the radio to the amplifier. If it has 8, we don't actually have to run any wires from the radio to bypass the amplifier because we can do a loop at the amplifier. In the case where there's just 2 wires, we're just going to run 4 new wires. If there's a case, obviously, where there's no wires, then we're going to run 4 new wires as well. It also just depends what you're doing on whether you need to run wires between the radio and the factory amplifier. If you're adding amplifiers, obviously you don't need to worry about that. In this case, we're going to be using this. So what we want to do in this video is take you through the steps of identifying if it's an 8, a 4, or whatever, and then also how to connect the existing speakers wiring to make the loop. Some people will just run new speaker wires, and that's perfectly okay. We're only going to be using the deck power, so there's really no reason to run all new speaker wiring. The wire that's in there is adequate for what we're going to be doing. So let's get to it. In the kick panel of this particular truck is the factory amplifier. Chrysler writes Chrysler Corp on it. It's got 2 harnesses, so we're going to go ahead and pull those out. Alright, so we got the 2 harnesses out, and we have a bunch of wires that we have no idea what they do. Now this particular one has some matching colors, which could be a good sign. They might be matching pairs going off to other speakers, and then this one just has a bunch of random colors. Now what we want to do is, since we know we have one of these plugs is going to the radio, we need to figure out which one. So to do that, we're going to use a voltmeter. Now we have our voltmeter, and what we want to do is come over here and set it to this little guy here. This is the continuity tester. So what that'll do is when the 2 ends make contact, makes a cool noise. Now that will allow us to put a wire here, put a probe into this side, and then a wire into the other side. So let's just see if any of these colors match. And this is like a kid's game.
All right.
Do you have a green with a red stripe?
Yes, sir, I got it.
Alright, let's test that. Alright. Do you have a blue with an orange stripe?
Blue with an orange stripe, yes.
At this point, we can continue on and test all 8. Awesome. However, we're going to take a little bit of a shortcut in that this is the factory plug for the radio. So we know what all these wires are because we have the plug. Now we have what each one of these wires means. So we know that these two here, these combination of blue orange and blue white, is going to be the number 4, the greens, the whites. We know all this information. So now that we know we don't have to run any wiring between the amplifier and the radio because we have all 8 speaker wires here, if we would have had a 4 or a data, then we'd be running wires now between here and the radio. But we don't have to do that. We can move on to figuring out what these speaker wires are. Since all these wires here are going to the radio, we know that the amplifier has a power and ground somewhere. The easiest thing to do is figure out what those are first so you can eliminate them. In this case, you can just look at it and kind of figure. They're going to be the fatter wires or sometimes matching pairs. In this case, we have a matching set of blacks and a matching set of purples. We'll go ahead and take our digital multimeter again and we'll switch it to DC, which is this guy here, the line with the dots underneath it. We'll just go to a ground and we'll probe here. And what we get is 12 volts. So we know which ones are positive. Let's go ahead and check for negative. What we did is we just put our probe on a ground because grounds are easy to find. And there we go, we have positive and negative. So we know that in this case, the blacks are ground, the purples are positive. If we were gonna add something like a cool micro amplifier or a brick amplifier, we could use these powers to power them back up. So now, since we've eliminated those, all we have left are these 4 pairs of multicolored wiring. So we have a set of whites, set of browns, set of greens, set of blues. This is very uncommon. Most manufacturers don't do something nice like this and give you matching pairs. Most of them look like this here, where you just have a bunch of random colors that are jammed into a plug and you have no idea what they are. So, yay Chrysler, boo everyone else. Just a quick recap. We know what all these do. We know it's power and ground. How do we figure out which one of these go to which speaker? And in this case, there's blown speakers, meaning some of the speakers don't actually work. That's no problem. Because we're replacing the speakers, we can do a continuity test, just like we did between the radio and these wires, and find out which one is which. So we're gonna go ahead now, we're gonna get one of the speakers out and do that. So we're gonna go ahead and set the meter back to continuity, which is the cool squiggly lines. And now we're gonna take the black probe and we're gonna put that in the door. What color wiring do you have there?
I have light green purple, light green dark green.
And because we have those paired colors over here, we do have a light green purple and a light green dark green. So that's this big bonus for us. Let's go ahead and try the light green purple. Alright, so there we go. We know that there's continuity between the two. So we know that the greens are going to be driver's door. We only have to test one of them unless we're worried about the wire being cut, in which case you'd go ahead and test the second one. Alright, so we know the wiring's good. The reason why the speaker wasn't working was for obvious reasons. But in some cases it might be that the wire is broken in the door boot. Because the door does open and close a ton, the door boot can sometimes get worn out. We've even seen cases where animals have chewed through the door boot. So it doesn't hurt to check both wires just to make sure. Okay, so we know that the driver's door is going to be greens. But we still don't know which one is positive and which one is negative because the driver's door speaker didn't work. One of these speakers is gonna work, and once we get one that actually works, what we can do is a phase check on it to see. Alright, so we got this speaker out and it doesn't look any better than the driver's side, but it does work, so that's a plus. Now one other thing is the wiring in the door, which we cut the plug on this one, is the same color, so it's green. Well, we know the driver's green, so there's only one green in the plug, so that's why we have to use the continuity tester. Now, what we want to do is we first want to figure out which is positive and negative. And for that, we're going to use the cool Pack Audio tone generator because it has the speaker pop test down here. So we'll just simply hook up to this guy here. Hit the button for me. That's moving backwards. Do it again. That's moving correct. So what we're doing here is, it's when you press the button, it moves one way or it moves the other way. If it moves out, it's in phase and the polarity is correct. If it moves in, it's out of phase and the polarity is backwards. So in this case, we can look at where we have the wires. So we have the red going into the green with the dark green stripe, and that is going to be our positive. This is going to be positive all throughout the car. So what we like to do is we fold the ground down, we leave the positive up. That way, when we look at these on the bench, we know which one is positive. Or if we pass around the car, because like I'm working on one side, he's working on the other. Either way, it's a standard of doing things, and we're all about that. So we know that this now is positive. All right, so we got our cool little notebook. We're gonna go ahead and use the positive is going to be green, dark green. And the green purple is negative. Now what we want to do is do our continuity test to figure out what is our wiring. So we'll go ahead and plug in the positive, which is the green, dark green. We'll come over here to our amp plug and we will test to see what we got going on here. All right, so let's check the whites, check the browns, check the blues. Ah, there we go, it's the blues. It's depressed. So we have a blue black and a blue purple, and the blue black is positive. So we'll write that down real quick. And the blue purple is negative. Now we'll just test the other wire just to make sure. All right, cool, wiring's good. All right, so now we have 2 of the 4. We're gonna go ahead and do the other ones so that we know what is what, and then we'll T-harness this back together. All right, so we've continuity tested all our speakers and we've written down all our wire codes, so we just basically have to crisscross these off. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and unfortunately cut these. Now when you're cutting these, make sure you leave enough so that if you need to reattach them, you can. I don't know why people feel like they need to cut wires like right here on the plug. That just blows my mind. I don't understand that. You can also just pull up here and it'll give us a little bit more room to work with. We'll repeat the process on this. Now this side of the plug has no wires that are gonna be left over, so we'll just go ahead and plug that back into the amplifier. And now we just need to strip these things down and solder them together.
So simple.
Now that we've got it all soldered up, let's go ahead and test the balance and fader and make sure it all works properly. And while we're at it, we'll also do a phase check. Okay, balance and fader works. So let's go ahead and check for phase. So phase checked good, balance and fader, everything was right where it needed to be. So that brings this one to an end. Now this is one of those things that we try really hard to make it make sense when we're shooting these videos, because this is a lot of information that we're throwing at you, and sometimes things get lost in translation, to say the least. But if there's something that you didn't get and you've watched it twice, and sat through the ads both times, please feel free to ask. We'll help you out any way we can, as usual. That's what we do. Yeah. So, anything?
No, we're good.
You good?
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, as usual, we hope this helps you a lot. We hope this gets you through your day. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Fernando.
Yeah, so thank you for watching. You guys can find us, you know where you find us, on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram.
If you are into Facebook, go ahead and check us out Monday night. We do the Facebook Live show, 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, where you can ask us questions. We give you a review of our week. We just general tomfoolery. Mostly just answer your questions. And I'm not going to keep you any longer. You guys have a great night, and we will see you later next time. Bye.